What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Now today's video is going to be a little bit all over the place because I've just gathered up all the clips that I made reinforcing of the rack, and I'm now just making an intro for this video. If you do notice it's a little all over the place, that's why. But if you guys want to see the other parts of building the actual rack itself, I will have the links down in the description, or you guys can check them out on the channel in case you guys are interested to see what got us to where we're at now. But now, since we did use flat plate, which I knew this was going to be a problem from the beginning, flat plate does flex a lot. So now what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be reinforcing everything so it doesn't flex as much. Now, you're never going to get flat plate to not flex. And I know a lot of people keep commenting on that it's flexing and this and that. That's just how it is. Even a square tube rack flexes. I've seen a lot of square tube racks that have really good reinforcements, and they still flex like crazy because at the end of the day, you're throwing around at least 500 pounds, which is what the bed weighs, and you're kind of flinging that around. So whatever rack you build, it's going to flex. And if it doesn't flex and it's that rigid, you're more than likely just going to crack all your welds and break a bunch of stuff and rip metal off of mounts and stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of a give or take. You have to get some flex, but you also don't want it to be too rigid to where it'll just break. Alrighty, so real quick, what I'm going to do is I'm making the actual bed mounts. So I'm just using some 3/8 flat bar that I got to reinforce the rest of the frame. And the way these are going to go is they're going to be in there like so. Right now, I just have a 3/8 hole, but I'm going to drill it out to maybe a 1/2 inch or maybe even a 5/8. That we can run a 5/8 bolt. Regardless of all this, I'm going to also do a kind of sandwich plate on top of the bed. So the bed's going to sit on this one, and it's gonna mount up to those, but on top of the actual bed I'm gonna have a flat piece that will go on top that will sandwich the whole bed to that rack. But you're not gonna see any of that because I have a pretty badass carpet kit that one of my friends actually hooked me up with. So if you're watching this, Marlon, thank you, I really do appreciate it. But he hooked me up with a carpet kit that he made for his truck. Him and his wife made it, and they ended up passing it on to me because he's got a whole radical bed now. So I'm super fortunate to be able to run that. So now I'll be able to hide everything underneath the bed, because that's just one of those things that kind of bug me, is when you have like the sandwich plate on top of the bed, but then you see it and it just kind of kills the whole look and the whole vibe. Right now I'm already at about 60 feet of material just right here, and that's already a lot considering my racks are super big. So the more weight I can save right now, the better. So I'm just gonna play around and do as minimal reinforcement and adding more extra weight than I have to. And then I'm gonna play with it. If I see that it flexes too much or I just don't like it, then I'll come back and add some. But my goal is to kind of get the whole setup working, play around with it and see how it reacts. And then from there, I'll be able to add some more gussets and adjust more, because on top of all this, I still have to add 3 batteries, 4 pumps. On top of that, I'm gonna add the bed, and I'm gonna have a camper shell. So I'm gonna be adding an extra 1,000 pounds just alone right there, on top of probably the other 1,500 pounds I already added. So right now is super key to try and save as much weight as possible. So I'm gonna try to just slow down and just do the minimal that I can. The first plan of attack is going to be on the 3rd stage. So the way it's going to be mounted on the 4th stage, this piece is going to have the whole entire weight of the bed, almost like a reverse. It's going to be a reverse dump. So when the 3rd stage is up like a dump position and the 4th one goes up, all of the weight of the bed is going to be on this front portion. My last cylinder is mounted on this angle iron, so this is going to be nice and sturdy. However, this whole front piece, since it's super long, is going to want to fold down. But right now the rack is upside down, so it's going to want to fold this way. Alrighty, well, those angle iron pieces I was talking about, they're already on here. I already welded them up. Now I'm not going to weld the whole entire thing because this is going to go through a lot of stress, and it's going to want to bend it. So these are probably going to crack eventually. Last thing we want is one solid weld across the whole thing, and then it starts to kind of crack in one corner and it just cracks all the way. So what we want is, in case, let's say this one cracks, if this one cracks all the way through, it won't be able to hit the next weld, and so on and so forth. That's why I'm doing it this way. On the back side, I'm going to do a little bit more welding also, but this is on. I also got this 1/2 inch plate on here welded up. Now, to make this stronger, what I should have done, but I didn't do, is before I put this plate on here, I should have drilled a hole through this top plate, maybe even multiple holes, so that when I put this plate on, I could weld it on the outside, and I could weld in those holes. That way it grabs it onto this piece even better. I didn't think of that ahead of time, so I didn't do it. But if you guys are going to do the same setup, definitely try to remember to do that, because this second stage is going to take pretty much all of the abuse, because when this one goes up and the third stage is on top, the third stage is going to want to move around like this. So the second stage is what's going to be flexing. What I have over here is some 3/8 by 2 inch flat bar, and I downsized from the initial 1/2 inch by 3 that I was using to try and save weight. Essentially, it's just reinforcement, so it's going to still be strong. The racks are now on the truck. Now, they're not fully welded, but the main structure of the racks are welded. However, I didn't get all the reinforcements on there because I wanted to put the racks on the truck. All 4 are right here, and I wanted to get all my tabs and everything on there, get all my cylinders just tacked on and bolted on, or I should say all the cylinder brackets tacked on, to make sure it doesn't hit anything like the gas tank or the drive shaft or anything like that. Technically, all the weight is going to be on this weld right here. Now, since I already added my brackets here, I feel like that should technically help brace that together, since it's grabbing both of the angle iron and the bottom brace over here and this X brace. It's kind of all being held together. But just to be even more safe, since a lot of the weight is going to be on this upper hinge section up here, I've got this 1 inch by 1/2 inch flat plate, and I've cut it at 18.5 inches, which is a little smaller than the rack I have, and I'm going to weld that right there like an angle iron kind of. So my rack in theory is going to have angle iron on the front and angle iron on the side. Now technically it's not angle iron, but we're strengthening this up so that when I hit the side, this right here, let's say it's at a 45 like this, it doesn't try to bend down, because now we have the 1/2 inch thick plate here, and we have 1 inch that we're adding to it. So it's going to be essentially 1.5 inches. When it goes up like this, it's going to try and bend this 1 inch section down. It could potentially still fail. I don't know. I haven't tested this out. But this is another reason why I built my racks as wide as I built them. So you can see my hinge is on the outside of my frame rails, so that I could do this and put this angle iron piece right here, because you can see it's outside of the frame. So this is going to sit somewhere next to the frame down here, tucked like that. Now, is it still doable to bend 1.5 inch thick piece and bend it down this way? Yes, it is possible, and it is very possible, but this should definitely make it a little bit stronger than having no support on there at all. So what's gonna happen if I don't reinforce the second stage and it's just the outer frame like that, with the weight of the bed, it's gonna want to lean forward, which is gonna pick up that hinge, and it's gonna flex this second stage, and that side is gonna pick it up. I've seen it happen a bunch of times. People don't reinforce them and they break. Now, I'm not too sure how to reinforce it to the point where it won't break, because this second stage is, in my opinion, it's going to be taking the most abuse. So I'm going to try to build a brace from here to over there, and then another X brace across like that. However, I don't know if that will stop it from flexing this way. Got the X brace all ready to go in there. Now I just need to fully weld it in. But it's still going to want to bend that way at the end of the day because of all this extra. This is pretty much another full-blown rack like what we got here on the overhead over here, hanging, trying to bend it down. So a little reinforcement piece that I'm going to be adding is this little tiny piece. I got this out of some scrap that I had. This is 2 inch, and what this is going to do is I'm going to weld this back here to the angle iron. That way when I bolt up my cylinder heim joint, it's fastened on both sides. So what I've seen people do is they'll put their heim joint right here and they'll run a nut and bolt right here, but as your cylinder is trying to open it, that bolt is moving to the side, and eventually it's going to oval out this hole, and it's going to make it all ugly. Plus it's going to make that bolt go through a lot of stress going back and forth and trying to wiggle it, and it's eventually going to break it a lot sooner than if we add this little piece, because then it'll be a little support. So now it'll be lifting on both of there, so it'll dissipate the pressure a little bit. Actually, I knew that it would probably bend, but I just wanted to try it and see if the design I did would even work to lift the bed up with the 4 stage.
and it did lift. It went up perfectly fine, came back down, and I said I'm not just gonna go up once, and if it's good, I'll reinforce it and then I'll try it some more. But I got greedy. I didn't reinforce it. I said I wanted to try it one more time, and that one more time ended up breaking the heim joints. Cylinder shot out and bent this, so you can see it pulled it down. This should be flush with the bed, so it essentially twisted it that way, which was exactly what was going to happen if I didn't reinforce it. And obviously I didn't reinforcement, and now that thing is all jacked up. So I'm going to quickly fix that. I'm going to take the bed off and I'm going to fix that. All right, so I think the plan of attack is going to gusset something from about this corner to the center of this, since this is trying to bend down. So in order to keep this from bending down and going back, I'm going to put a corner gusset here. This is kind of what I got drawn out so far. So this is going to go right about there. Those two being right there across like this should keep this from bending or trying to push down any more than it already has. And then on the back side, I'm going to put some straight pieces about 30 inches, and they're going to weld up to the side of this. I would go straight, but my truck is too low, and this is higher than the top of this, so I can't go straight unless I were to put a bend or something, but the bed is right there. So I'm going to have to go angled around the axle to back there on both sides, and then I'll have really big gussets going from the bottom of that, almost like a triangle. So I guess this would be a good example. Something like this, where to get welded to this, welded on the whole entire top, which would be the bottom of the other piece, and it would be at an angle like that. All right, well, I got those in, got a fairly nice fit. Now I'm still going to come back and bevel it and leave a little bit of a gap, that way I can get the weld to penetrate. What I've done right here is I marked my center line. And the way I did this is by measuring the total width and then splitting the difference. For example, this is 3 inches, so it's 1.5 inches, and that's where I have my center line. And the reason I mark my center line is because this is the center of the entire rack. So if I were to put it like this, then this center point wouldn't be that strong, because it would barely be grabbing the edge of this plate versus the other one. So I guess I'll compare this one. This one is a good way of center mounting. So you have all this surface area right here in the center, making it super sturdy. Versus you have this, yes, it's wider, but you don't really have much support here in the center. What I've done is I got a piece of cardboard that's 34 inches long. There's no real reason why I chose 34 inches. Just 34 inches is going to get me to around where I want to be in the back. I can make it bigger, I can make it smaller, it doesn't really matter because it's a reinforcement. But this is going to be going center line there, and on the back side it's going to go all the way into the edge, since there's not going to be a big load. And also if I put it on the edge, I can get a super crazy angle and get a lot of welding surface area, which is good for me. So this is going to be something like that. Alright, well now I'm going to start to weld all of these in, but before I weld them, I'm obviously going to bevel everything. I'm pretty sure I've talked about this a lot in the past, but you always want to make sure that you bevel it and add a little chamfer, meaning you add a little point to the edge of it. That way it's thinner in that area, so when you weld it, you actually get the weld to penetrate and get deep into the metal versus just welding it on top. I'll just come in here with my marker and kind of mark all of these spots so that I know that that's where my bevel needs to be. Now, even if I had a nice strong welder, I would probably still do this just to get it to penetrate, because obviously a nice penetrated weld is always the best and strongest thing you could do. I'm not gonna lie, the design looks pretty damn cool. Got this guy all nice and beveled. Now we need some little corner gussets, which I have one cut out of cardboard, which are gonna sit like that. And that should prevent this bottom piece of the angle iron from flexing back like that. Well, that's about going to wrap up this video. Now, if I do end up doing more reinforcements as I keep building this truck, I will definitely post a video. But as of right now, all the reinforcement I've done is what you guys have seen. I've already tested the truck out and it seems to be good.
It seems to be pretty sturdy, but like I keep saying this, I keep saying it over and over. The only way I'm gonna find out if I have weak links is to beat on it quite a bit and, you know, figure out what's gonna break and what's gonna need to be reinforced. So once I get to that, then I'll come back and reinforce some more things. As of right now, the pumps are all installed. Everything is plumbed, at least for the 3 stages that I got going. Everything is wired up, and I have a working 3-stage. Now that 4th stage you guys saw, technically I don't have it working because I don't have any lines to get fluid from the pump down here all the way to the last stage. But tomorrow I might be going real quick to a shop down the street from my house to see if I can get something made for this weekend, because my goal is to try to get this truck out for the first time this weekend to the New Meanies Danny D Memorial Show that they're going to be having on. Now I'm bummed because last year I was going to go, but that's when I had the ST wheels. I had it super low and I ended up rubbing through the front and pretty much blowing my tire up almost damn near on the freeway on the way there. So I didn't get to make it last year. I really want to make it there this year. So if you guys are watching this video when it comes out, my plan is to have this truck out there this Sunday. I believe it's August 20th. So my plan is to be out there if possible. And I keep mentioning this, and I just want you guys to know, if you guys do come and see the truck in person, just know that the truck is not done by any means. When I reinforced the frame, I didn't even clean it up. Everything is still rusty. Everything is still welded. I didn't grind any welds away. Everything is still as raw as it could be. And the reason I'm doing this is because, for one, I'm just trying to enjoy the truck. I don't want to have it sit here for a whole year and then bust it out. And that's just not how I roll. I rather show the progress of what I'm doing and let you guys see. That way you guys can see that when you're building a car, it's not always super nice and pretty. They all have to go through a pretty rough stage, no matter what car you're talking about. Even a brand new car, if you turn it into a show car, it always has to go through a really rough stage of doing custom work and all that wiring and all that stuff to get to where you guys see it when it's a nice show car. So that's why I want to take it out the way it is, all rough and rust everywhere. And another reason why I don't want to clean up the frame and clean everything up just yet is because I'm still experimenting with the whole rack setup, and I do want to bag the truck. So the last thing I want to do is make this all nice and pretty and then have to grind a lot of things out and cut a bunch of things out and redo a whole bunch of things. So that to me just seems like a waste of time. That's not how I roll. So I'd rather just show what I have. Racks aren't even painted. They're raw. They're rusty. And just take it out like this, enjoy it, and like I said, figure out what's going to break, because it is going to definitely break. Figure out what's going to break and then fix it as I go along. And if there is no nice paint or anything, I don't have to worry about ruining anything. Once I get it to a stage where I feel confident in how it's set up, then we'll tear the whole truck apart and we'll make it all nice and pretty, and we'll paint the frame and we'll do all that fancy stuff. But until then, I'm just going to run it the way it is, and I'm just going to enjoy it because I'm itching to go out there and cruise with all the homies. With all of our mini trucks. The more that I think about it, the more that I want to change. So that's another reason why I don't want to paint anything, because realistically there's already 10 different things that I want to change on the truck. I already made a list. So I'm almost done with the stages. I'm on the finishing touches of finishing the whole setup, and I already want to tear it apart. I already made a little chart on all the things I want to change. So there is going to be a lot of changes with the truck during the whole process of building the rack. So once again, this is why I don't want to paint it and have it all nice, because knowing me, I'm probably going to tear it down and redo a lot of things on the truck. But yeah, the whole plan is to try and make it out there this Sunday. It's in 3 days. I have a lot of work that I have to do, and I don't have a lot of time. So hopefully I can get the truck out there. And if not, I'll at least go on my daily driver and I'll go have some fun and hang out with you guys. But with all that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Later, guys.